Welcome to the last session for this conference, one of the most interesting in these 2 days because we're going to be talking about micropayment advertising and monetization. A lot of the ideas that we've seen over the past 2 days and that we're going to see in the future. And for this, we have an amazing panel in alphabetical order. Garret, Keogh, Director of Cross-Media Platforms for Zodiak, Aktive, an Italian-British company, Nicolas, Levant, Head of Retail Advertising for BNP Paribas, who is the initiator of the projects that we've seen over the past 2 days. Cyril, Zimmermann, CEO of eMedia, who 2 days ago launched France Networks, is something I mentioned several times, and I really encourage you to go and have a look at it, and he's going to talk about it a little bit more in detail. And Gaël from Newcastle, from the Vivaki group. Just to introduce this rather wide-sweeping topic, what was of interest to us to begin with was monetization of content is at the crossroads of several tendencies that are very strategic, depending on the point of view that you take, i.e. finance modes and distribution modes, and as well how to attract audiences' attention. Because as and when you start paying for what you are viewing or for services, then obviously you have to make sure that you maintain their interest. I think this is a major point to start the discussion. Perhaps each of you could give us a little sort of snapshot of their idea on content and how they monetize that content. Garret, would you like to start?
Traditional production company, and in the past most of our funding was from broadcasters. So a traditional model, you go to the broadcaster, you get paid a check to make a production, you keep your money on top of it, you move on to the next production. That model has to change. Either broadcasters no longer have the money, or the money needs to come from elsewhere, and that affects what type of content you make and how you produce it. So a really interesting time. So we're doing some big projects in the UK. We work with Renault via Publicis Group and our Renault TV channel. So that's a brand paying for a whole TV channel, which is IPTV, but also on Sky in the UK, and 60 hours of programming a year, so a sort of £2 million budget to make content there. And we do other projects which are more smaller content projects that go out online and go on channels as well. So from a production point of view, new funding models for us, and then also from a producer point of view, some content we may need to fund ourselves. So very new for a production company, either to fund ourselves, to launch pilots online, or to go straight to consumer funding via apps and other ways of funding content.
Bonjour. Donc, chez BNP.
At BNP Paribas, content, the issue about content, I can only look at it from a communications point of view because our content for us is mainly based on communications. For us, it's a means of using a storyboard to sort of like dress up a message, if you like, that we needed to communicate with our customers. We used Arthur and the Minimoys, the film with Luc Besson. We've been working with him from the outset of his production, and it was a great opportunity for us to build this very gripping story about the bank and money for an audience, a target audience of 0 to 12 years old. Now, obviously, it's difficult to talk about money directly. In fact, it's illegal, so that makes that clear. And today, if you like, we've reached a new era. We'll be able to talk about this with the panelists here, to build content in this way. For the moment, we hadn't found any content on the market that matched what we wanted to convey in terms of story and that would fit with this target audience, which by definition is not, or banks, if you like, don't fall within their favorite brands. And they don't listen to us, and they're probably quite right not to. So the Rue des Colloques was a way of reaching out to this audience by using suitable content, and then this was backed up, or this was followed up with discussion on products and services that they do need. So we're going to go straight into new funding methods with or without micropayment. Before going into the thick of the subject, I know that BNP Paribas has a big advertising, and you've decided to invest a lot on the production side of the message, where in the past you were focused more on media and less in terms of creation of a 30-second slot, which obviously was faster to produce and cheaper. So why have you taken this new strategy? Is it because you saw that there was a viral potential in taking this tactic or using this tactic, and which has led to this quality project that has been very successful, in fact? Well, we took the problem the other way around. We noticed that for the 15 to 25 age group, which we work well with today, we worked with a number of artists, Erica Ramsey, for example, and we used multimedia platforms, and we used to create a backdrop for the internet using that basis. It was quite easy or quite simple. And then we went to meet our target audiences. And basically, using Facebook and the community networks is a bit like going to supermarkets to actually do direct marketing, because once you're in that place, then you have to be ready to engage in discussion with them. So if we're on Facebook, what are we going to say? And it's at that stage that we came up with this idea of content. To begin with, it was really this idea of content that drove us forward. We had to build a story that it be educational, that it be gamed, and that it met the point of interest for that target audience, obviously, but followed up more based on a logical approach for products and services that were offered by BNP Paribas. It wasn't simply a question of creating a buzz for the sake of creating a buzz. So you're saying that the model actually came after the initial objective. Well, it's still more expensive. If we're going to do something, that we do it properly. And I think that this is the point of brain content. Sometimes people have the idea that we're going to do cheap content just to create a buzz, and 300 million hits. You need to have a proper strategy because it's very time-consuming, and then you need to leave content production to the experts, and that's where we gave the floor to experts with whom we worked to do this. Cyril, yours is a more specialized area, not as mainstream, which is a French networks, Réseau des Français, with a micropayment element. Well, perhaps if I can rewind and explain why we came up with this idea. 15 years ago, we produced advertising on the internet. I'm not talking about offline cinema. My area of expertise is only online. So we've been selling ads online for the past 15 years with free content so that web users can see it for free. And for the past 15 years, we also have micropayment solutions that are geared for internet, which give premium content for web users who want to access it. And strangely, we found that websites with whom we worked, they either wanted sponsors or other payment methods to generate finance from consumers, but there was never a crossover between the two, which is a shame because neither advertising nor micropayment are enough alone to meet the costs to fund content that users demand. And sometimes we're confronted with editorial choices that aren't that easy to do. For example, some content is geared to a sponsor, some to the advertiser, sometimes because the topic that is being dealt with, or a brand, for example, wants to invest in a certain topic, but sometimes the content won't be speaking to a target audience, and they never find a sponsor or a financer for the project. And so there's this on the one side, and then on the other hand, you have people who have tried to build this micropayment internet-based model, based on video games, and this was in the 80s. People produced CDs, they had consoles, and they had everything illegally copied. So they had the CD for 50 euros that were copied and reproduced on internet, which were pirated. And here, in this case, we have freemium, which gradually became more and more premium because it was modulated, i.e. you could buy pieces of game and you bought pieces of the game to build it up. And we have daily information news items that are available. But then you have, if you have free information, it's only financed by advertising, then obviously there's a dependent relationship which isn't necessarily healthy. On the other hand, is everybody on the internet ready to pay for information? Probably not, which means that turning everything into premium content won't work either. So coming back to the subject that you mentioned to begin with, we created a multimedia book called Friends of Networks of La France des Réseaux. I think it's a misnomer to say that we have the launch of new books in September, like Challenges and Nouvelles Obs. This is, in fact, a topic that France actually does like. It's not true to say that it's boring. We have a professional journalist who used to work at the Express who worked with us. We tried to build the editorial to make sure that it had AV. We had 6 hours of video. We have multimedia. We have 800 photographs. There's 800 pages of text. And this is a purely online distribution. We have a specialized website, which is lafrancedesreseaux.com, with new content every day. And users can have a look at new content every day, or pre-buy or catch up. So these are 20 power networks. So you have Freemasons, the Corsicans, Department 92, or the Nicolas support group, which, if you like, are scaled to whatever they want, where you have posts per day and several photographs. For example, if you connect on a Monday, you can see that on Monday it's free. If you connect on a Tuesday to have a look at what's going to be projected tomorrow or posted tomorrow, or you want to catch up, then you have a payment method to get that content in time shift.
We gathered 3 different kinds of media, video, photo, and text. It was very interesting to look for the right combination in order to have a mix between pay and free. Of course, internet is the kingdom of separation between content. You are buying an article and you're not buying the whole encyclopedia, as it was the case usually if you wanted to buy Universalist, for example. So there is a segmentation, and we have several metrics in the content. We're following up a logic of a weekly delivery, and you have several episodes like a TV series lasting over 24 hours, and in the end you want to see the next episode, and then you're brought up for 20 weeks through the several episodes and several copies. Yes, of course, I know that power networks are mainstream topic, but of course in the beginning Riyad Satouf was more obvious. As regards classical production as a Zodiak, how is this relationship between metrics and content? How do you think about a new separation and a new segmentation? How do you anticipate on this in order to captivate your audience? What are the new production models you developed when you design a program? How do you anticipate on this, and how do you think about possible transposition on Facebook, on iTunes and so on in order to fund your projects?
Actually, I want to bring up, before I answer your question, I think that your point about trying to match existing content in the market with a brand is very difficult. Not impossible, but very difficult. Sorry. To make that,
can you speak in the mic, please?
It's very difficult. So I think for content companies, it's about proving yourself and then going to speak to the brand, but then creating new content with the brand. Existing content and about very difficult to achieve. So I think people know that, and I think also, and to come on to your second part of your question, I think the old rules still apply. It's about good stories and good characters and well-produced content. All the rules that have always applied on theatre, movies, TV, etc. And these apply for these new content models as well. So really good scripting, really good characters that people want to engage with. So, and then in terms of how you produce content for these new platforms, I think, again, like you said, the same. the best people need to produce the content. So good writers working on Facebook and Twitter, just as they would work for writing scripts. So not digital people writing content, but writers writing content, and actors acting content, and good producers. I think the benefit of social media and new platforms is you get more feedback from your users really early on in the project. So launch the project online, very low cost, pilot it with real communities, build those communities, and feed that back into the project. I think then you get the right sort of projects for these new platforms that people will really engage with.
Mais est-ce que tu crois que
Do you believe that a consumer that is used to free content, like catch-up TV in order to view episodes and American series and so on, that this consumer following the Twitter thread of True Blood Hero and the first episode before it has been broadcasted on the TV channels and has the opportunity to view this freely, do you think that we can create services and story threads that may generate money in the future? Because nowadays we see that there is innovation on the side of production, but we still have to invent all of those practices.
Absolutely. So the payment may not come for watching the episode, but the payment may come somewhere else down the line. So there may be a Facebook game that has Facebook credits to, customize an avatar or play along in some way. So there are alternative funding methods. And I'm quite happy with the model where you put some content out for free, and then later on there will be some payment, not necessarily for the content, but for somewhere else in the payment chain. So yeah, definitely. But producers and broadcasters need to look beyond just paying purely just for the content. Look at other models as well. iPad application, the publishing model is really interesting because you have a subscription then, so people are already bought into a payment system. So yeah, lots of new ways and new models of what it's about really.
tu viens de parler d'iPad, ce qui serait intéressant de voir.
You just mentioned the tab, iPad. How do new media for viewing content have an impact on developing programs? I'll start with you, Nicolas, with your program Mecoloc. How do you work on this at the cinema, but for theater also, or for live shows? Do the iPad and tablets have an impact on and give you new ideas for the future? At BNP, we are really very much focusing on the content. Which content, which target, and which way of producing the content. And this is the reason why I agree with you. We cannot find those models on the market because they have to match together with a global strategy, and therefore, in the end, at the end of the day, this has to be efficient, and not finding the audience would be the worst case scenario. So, in my opinion, we should rather use old school advertising if we are sure to secure the audience this way. Second, our episodes have found their position on the internet, have found their role on the internet. They have been positioned over the Androids or the iPhones. They are broadcast over the iPads, and we see that as the content is worked out by highly skilled and competent persons, then TV channels and cinema got interested into this because storytelling is interested to a very large audience. So it's not only about having dedicated content applying to phone, internet, or one single media, but the content has to be circulated as widely as possible. Cyril, in the last 15 years, since you've started working on those websites, your content approach has been implemented. You mentioned this France des réseaux, Friends of Networks. How do you anticipate on the new uses of pads, micropayments, and funding models? Coming back to this notion of payment, I have to say that we very firmly believe in the fact that the user has to pay. Not always, not for any services, but it's important that the user pay. Otherwise, information or entertainment content, they all have a cost. On TV, on radio, FTV, BBC, RAI, all those broadcasters have a cost, and for a private broadcast channel you pay sometime, and you're paying for this opportunity of having a broader choice and having a different content offer. And this enables the broadcasters to also captivate a broader audience. So we should not forget that. We should bear this in mind, and it is essential that we have a didactic approach towards the parties involved, so that the viewers do not have the feeling that we are moving backward when we ask them for payment. We should avoid to convey the illusion of everything is free, that everything is free. This is an illusion. This has been conveyed by Google, but Google is generating income as it is having a strong control over most contents. And then out of this can generate advertising. So we need the user to perceive its contribution, and we see that thanks to the iPads and tablets and thanks to mobile phone, we had the opportunity to shift from this fake free availability to a pay system. The platform was well done so that payment was not too painful, not too painful experience, and we have been operating our transfers on websites that are mostly dedicated to video and to games, because those paying systems don't need you to use very complex paying systems, but they are enabling you to optimize the marketing and the payment. Therefore, we could solve this question using the iTunes portfolio, which is easy to use. Then how can we encourage users to pay? Internet moved on from the text to the picture era, so that nowadays you want to buy a content because it's a longer content. Video is longer lasting than small text content, and it's more animated. So in a conscious or unconscious way, you see the added value of this video content, and this is a good point because the cost of video production is higher than the cost of text production. So yes, tabs and mobile phone enabled us to have the user pay in an easier way. The game environment played a vital role in this dynamic of having the user pay. Facebook is also a main social platform over which on which people start paying, and I think this entire development is quite healthy because it enables the existence of AV content. You were mentioning Facebook. We also talk about a new system that is going to come up. And thanks to it, Facebook is going to be a competitor to Facebook and Apple, to iTunes and Apple. Do you believe in the development of this Facebook credit and Facebook micropayment system applied to specific contents in order to develop project fundings and content fundings? Is that a clear question?
I think it's a matter of trust. You know, you pay people that you trust, and people trust Facebook, and they trust Amazon, and they trust iTunes, and they will set up an account with them, and it's easy then to upload small amounts, micropayments to that account. So I think the market is much more sophisticated, I agree with your point, than it was earlier on when the payment methods weren't even there. So now everybody has an Amazon account, everyone has an iTunes account, people will have a Facebook credits account, it'll be very easy to pay. So the next model is, and I know they're trying this out, is pay for movies via Facebook or pay for movies via Google payments, whatever else. So yeah, absolutely, the infrastructure is there now, and the trust is there from the consumer point of view, so it's a much different market than it was 5-10 years ago.
Parce que là, en fait, aujourd'hui, Facebook, il y a...
Which means that nowadays Facebook, you see this show gaining. We see another company, you see Spotify or VOD contents that have developed at the same time as Facebook technologies have. And you can use all those tools in order to develop content. Yes, that's true. We are at a transition phase. We have very well done platforms that exist. We also see that technology, it's not possible to have a Facebook iWallet, to have an Apple iWallet, and you cannot have one portfolio iWallet for each brand. there is such a numerous amount of those iWallets that it's not possible for one single user to have one wallet for gaming, one for Facebook, one for something else. And then we come back to the original question, should maybe the bank play this role and step in? In the first phase, in the first step, we saw that the major brands on the internet, Amazon, eBay, PayPal, Facebook, iTunes, Apple, had encouraged people to pay because there is a strong trust in those brands. They are admired, and there is a trust atmosphere. And then you move on to the bank trading, because back office and banking is a specific trade. If you want to let people pay, you should offer a motivating interface and something that's easy.
Trust banks anymore, you know, maybe they trust Facebook more than banks.
Une question idiote, mais je vais la poser quand même.
It may seem stupid as a question, but still I'll ask. What is the last content on internet you've been paying for? What was the last content, and afterwards you thought or that you were very happy with this investment? A very simple thing, an application, a song, a movie.
Spotify. I think Spotify in the UK is a really good model. So, you know, freemium model plus ads, and then pay per prescription for £10 a month for unlimited music. So good quality. And recently I read an article about the game, the Portal game, and it was an article that was available as an app. So it was a magazine article with video and with other content, but I bought it as an app. So I didn't buy the magazine, I just bought the article for, say, $2.99. So again, a good model. So you don't mind paying if it's the right content and the right price point.
Moi, je suis resté très ludique, je me suis téléchargé.
I've downloaded many movies in order to have a weekend trip, and my daughter downloaded lots of apps on my iPhone, and I guess it was expensive, but I don't know how much it has cost. Music, that's what I bought. And the media part, I'm from media part. This is a new point for me, this thing that you have to pay for information, and I was naturally motivated to that because I registered for the website, subscribed for the website Mediapart, and I saw that the editorial content is really unique, and you cannot find this content anywhere else. So I think that it's interesting to see how Edoui Plenel's career is still remaining successful, and that he's developing a broad audience of registered people. Interestingly enough, as regards your audiences, we see that there is a trend to mainstreaming. Not only the higher executives are using those tools, but it is a tool that's used by everyone in the family. Maybe your 12-year-old daughter is going to download some program, and then your teenage son is going to download a magazine. Do you have the feeling that nowadays we are not anymore at the time when only geeks and nerds are interested in all those media, and do you feel that there is a trend to democratization, and do you think that people tend to even increasingly pay for those services?
A child using an iPhone or an iPad to understand the potential of the market, you know, the kids that just get that interface. The models do have to be a little bit more sophisticated to stop kids spending their parents' money too much. So, you know, in-game passwords or whatever the model is, but definitely the generation, even beyond this generation, the really young preschoolers, they get that platform, and that's where content comes from, and they'll get that there will be a buy button somewhere along the way. So.
C'est vrai, ce qui est assez étonnant, c'est que les gamines, enfin, j'ai aussi...
Surprisingly enough, I also have a daughter. She's 12 years old, and I think that it's not a problem to her to illegally, freely download music, but paying for 3 or 4 euros, she hasn't got any problem when it comes to paying 3 or 4 euros in order to buy accessories for a game. I think people are interested in content, and be it free or pay, legal or illegal, is not really that relevant or that important to them. So they're very much focusing on the content, and they'll try to get this content anywhere over the iPhone, over the pad or the computer. And I think that those generations have overcome this specific hindrance of paying, not paying. also because they have no financial issues. Of course, I think the expectations and are higher. Music was first free, and then Apple and iTunes started introducing a pay service, and the service has such a high quality that it's obvious that you have to pay for that. It was obvious to those who were owning Apple devices. And then Spotify has come up with different offerings and really very much coaching the consumers in order to show to them how to use those devices. And then you can subscribe to an unlimited music registration. And I would never have been able to imagine such an offering. We have an amazing quantity of content available, and this is the same for Mediapart. It is a new way of carrying out journalism activities, and it is different to what you can see in the daily press. The audiovisual content production is going to be questioned also in the same way as music and press have been. And I'm afraid audiovisual production companies are in the same situation as the one experienced by music production companies 20 years ago. We see nowadays that there are subsidies from the TV channels. There is a pre-funding system that enables the AV production companies to exist, and will probably have to operate a control revolution to change their production, distribution, and offering methods, which is probably going to be very interesting. If you consider HBO, that is developing its own internet network and offering services related to those so-called licenses, while selling them to network distributors in several countries. Garret, can you answer this question? Do you see there a sign that your trade is changing, that you are increasingly becoming a distributor, and that your audience and your contents are changing also, as well as by products?
Zodiak have made a lot of money in the past from reselling the same content from country to country, and continue to do so, but that model has, maybe 5 years left, if not shorter, because the show will be made in one place and you'll subscribe to see the show in that place. So that model is definitely changing. But I think, you made some interesting points about the music industry, and, I have 2 teenage kids too, also a daughter, like everyone else. And, she has never paid for music in her life, but now wants me to pay for her Spotify account. So, behavior does change. And I think that's really interesting to look at that. And I always thought that every industry would learn from the mistakes of the music industry. We're seeing industries making some of the same mistakes, but hopefully now the infrastructure is in place, so at least the tools are there when they're ready to adopt them. So.
C'est pas vraiment forcément la réponse totale, mais effectivement.
It's not necessarily an exhaustive answer, but this is an important question. Cyril, are there any matters you'd like to talk about apart from the fact that free content can't continue inexorably? How do you see things in the future in your world? So, for example, in 10 years' time, how do you see things panning out in terms of content mix, distribution, and okay. I think there are a few hackneyed themes that I often talk about, or I keep talking about. My gut feeling, which I find sometimes hard to justify, but I still believe in because it's a few years now that I've had this feeling. Whether it be mobile, tablet, PC, or PC, I don't think it really matters. It's simply a digital distribution format. But on the other hand, what we do know in terms of website, in the future, we're going to have a production studio that will build AV content. I think there's going to be a big acceleration, which means that internet is going to become an AV media, whereas before it was a text medium. And in future, browsing on the basis of a URL which takes you from page to page to read articles and link up articles or photos is going to evolve. It won't be the central part of internet. Internet obviously will still have the Wikipedias of this world with a textual basis, if you like. But many thematic sites, be it sport, music, for video games, for women's issues or whatever, or magazines or dailies, in tomorrow's world, they will become production studios themselves and include programs, TV programs, if you like to use a well-known term today, which will be geared for women, which will be geared for the theme in question. I think we're going to be going from a medium to an actual production center. And this production will be financed either by finding new distribution channels, sponsors, or by introducing a model which allows the user to pay for certain content. And then the question to answer will be whether they will distribute themselves, or if the YouTube and Daily Motions of the world will centralize distribution like core TV channels have done for distribution, and then they will manage advertising and payment. And whether that will be a sort of like a big circle which will come back to meet the same model that we know in the AV world today. So producer, distributor, what is your vision for the next 10 years, over the next 10 years?
Is really about talent. Where is the next generation of multimedia producers? Where are they going to work? Because they're going to be the people making this content. And I think if you're coming out of college now as a producer or an editor, a multi-skilled social media manager, what sort of companies are you going to work for? And I think they will look beyond broadcasters and beyond production companies and speak to agencies and speak to games companies who are making innovative content. So I think companies need to adapt to where those new producers will go, change how they work, change how they incentivize people, change how they launch products, change how they attract new talent, and then they'll be in the best place to adapt to the market, whatever way it develops. We don't know which way it will develop, but I think that's key, is to look at that talent and see who's going to recruit those people and where are they going to be working in the future.
Donc Nicolas, toi dans 10 ans, tu es patron des programmes de...
In 10 years' time, are you going to be the producer for Canal Plus programs? Well, actually, it's a little more complex than that. The feeling that I have is that for a very long time, creation and distribution of content was in a vertical world, which was very clear and understandable, very transparent, with producers, distributors who were authorized to create and distribute content with a single unique audience which bought this content. And at the moment, the feeling I have is that the situation is not so clear-cut. We're still, for example, in terms of content creation, producers, distribution, and brands today are on a level playing field and are all in a position to create content and get audiences' attention. And that, of course, throws back into question the verticality of the model that we had up until today. And everybody has a role to play in this new world, on condition that, as Garret said, that it would be the best talent that's recruited at the end of the day. But I think that the traditional production model with producers who then convert to digital world and then launch buzzers, launch brands, I think it will be a question of association and association of creation. I think that it's a sea change undergoing at the moment. Garret was talking about Renault TV earlier on. So you're working as creator, distributor. As a brand, do you think there is a future to develop in the same way as Renault has done with Zodiak, i.e. to build a powerful content feed that vehicles a branded message similar to the medium that you use for your brand distribution today? Well, I think that Garret is testimony to say that it is possible. Or why should one refuse this model? If the brand has content and has a message to convey, then why not? I think once everybody knows what the rules are and that it's, as you were saying earlier on, that there is an effort made to produce content that is launched by the brand, then why shouldn't it exist? Well, say, for example, I want to launch a 3D mobile phone tomorrow. I don't think it would bother me to actually go to advertising and to finance, for example, the creation of an avatar and then launch an ad campaign saying, look, I'm the first 3D mobile phone to look at this film that I've also produced. It depends on what message you're trying to convey. From the point of view of the brand, if everything fits together with the business that you're driving, with the products and services that you have, then yes, it makes sense. I think then you have to be clear about what you're good at doing. the channel BNP Paribas TV channel is not something I believe in, for example. That's not our specialized field of business. You have to know what your position is in this new world, and you have to be sure about who you're working with. That's the second important thing to say. So you have Symposia, Roland Garros. There seems to be a trend forming. Well, of course, there are two directions that we're interested in. First of all is tennis and cinema. These are the two communication modes that we use around the world. And again, the idea is, one, to be at the forefront of people's minds. That's why we're in tennis. And secondly, to add brand value. And how can we increase the value of our brand if we don't attach a story to it? Because, for example, in tennis 2 years ago, thanks to tennis, we produced a whole different kind of content that was cast over internet. We had Wildcard, which was an invitation of an amateur tennis player to be incorporated into professional tennis tournament. So play 5 minutes in Roland Garros and participate in this alternative tennis tournament, if you like. So this content, if you like, fitted with the story that the BNP Paribas is trying to tell and has been telling for the past 38 years. It was consistent. The idea is not simply to produce content for the sake of producing content in any old how, paying for it or not paying for it. It's got to be consistent with what you're doing.
I think it also depends on the brand. So a lifestyle brand is it's easier because people have an affinity with the brand. If you're a cleaning product, you might not go to a cleaning product TV show. So, and I think if you look at brands like Renault or Nike or Diesel or, a Uniqlo or Urban Outfitters are good brands that people will identify with. Red Bull is a really good example. So Red Bull is a content producer. So they film their own sports events, their own music events, and they take these to the broadcaster in each country and offer them to the broadcaster for free in return for space on the channel. They do their own in-house production, and that is the model for the future. Now, Red Bull is a specific lifestyle brand that people really feel a real affinity with, but that's one model for some brands, not for every brand, but one model that can work.
There was something else that was interesting. I don't know if you have anything to say on this notion of brain content and a mixture with advertising to build content. So your experience with Renault, was there a key point at the production process where you needed validation, for example, from the brand owner, which could have jeopardized the attractiveness of the program that you were producing? Well, it's a bit of a trick question. I'll still ask you.
It's very difficult to get it right. The brand owners are not content producers. And sometimes there's an agency in between, and they like to think that they're also creatives. And then we're the production company, we're also creative, so there are a lot of people with a lot of ideas. I think, back to my original point, the rules of good content are the same, whatever. So usually we know what that is because we've made content for a long time. So it's our job to convince the agency and the brand and whatever else. But it's a long, complicated process. Everybody is educating each other. It will hopefully get easier as we all become more aware of each other's fields. But at the moment, it takes a long time, a lot of approval to make even a very small show. So we need to be realistic about. It's not a bright, happy future where everybody just likes everyone's content. It makes it more complicated. But if it gets the program made and gets the program funded, it's worth it in the long run.
Si je peux me permettre, parfois c'est pas l'annonceur qui met les freins.
Sometimes it's not the brand owner that puts a brake on things. Sometimes it's the agency. It's a bit of it's an agency, for example, say that we mustn't put advertising in the content. And so sometimes we have content where we had no advertising, and it became so complicated at the end of the day because obviously I understood at one stage that we had to work alone. So it's not always the brand owner who creates problems. This was with Riyadh. We have to remember that the brand owner has to understand why things are being done, and if they're being done, they have to be done full on. It can't be done half-baked. And I remember that I had Riyadh Satouf and Mondircom who are very well known in the communications world, and they were coming out of the meeting. It was just after the financial crisis, the world financial crisis, so very difficult topics, very high level and far-reaching problems. And Riyad gave his speech, gave the scenario, and Simon says to Mustafa, come over here. We're going to put this new game on your PC. And Mustafa said, okay, fine, you start, I'll come back. And he said, have you still got 3 rolls of blue paper under your bed? Yeah, he said, yeah, you can take one. And I can see my director of communications going completely white in the face. And he says, yes, this is slightly detached from the European Central Bank's problems at the moment. So, okay, so I think talking about loo rolls at this stage is a little bit OTT. So, okay, so. Cyril, do you think that the fact that you can micropay for content offers audiences a better quality of programs, better than what would be sponsored by advertising? Or is there no distinction between the quality of content which is advertised or financed? Well, there are issues which speak to a broader audience and are easier to identify with, which means that there will be more sponsors, more advertisers who are prepared to finance the work, and then other topics which are too narrow and too niche, which means that they won't be easily financed. Now, if the whole of the economy is based on a brand being compatible with a topic, then all well and good. But if it's something that's too niche, which only talks about 15,000 people, and it's something that doesn't hit the right age group or target audience, it's not easy then, obviously, to find an advertiser who's prepared to finance the content. And it would be a shame if there is no advertiser and there's no distributor, because you have to remember that there are 2, or it takes 3 to tango, because you need the distributor and the producer, because even if you have a producer and you don't have a distributor, then it doesn't work either. Then the advert won't work. And yet there could be parallel productions with content that are either game-based or informative, that are going to be aimed at 15,000, 20,000 here, 50,000 there. There could be an ecosystem that's built around that, and in that case, then we have to find people who are prepared to finance that. Now, obviously, we're not going to ask them to cough up huge amounts, but it should be done in a way which is of interest to the finances. There is not that we would force them into that, but it allows internet users to access content that is of interest to them. Now, could we open the questions to the floor?
Est-ce que vous avez des questions à poser à certains des intervenants?
Do you have any? Are there any questions or remarks for our panelists? Hi. As part of your work with Symposia, are you considered as a producer, co-producer? I heard earlier on that you had TV series projects, theatrical productions. So are you... Well, how are you positioning yourself as part of this work? Are you a co-producer, or have you subsidized this work in order to obviously promote your brand? But from a business point of view, how do you get benefit from this? Well, for us, it was, to begin with, it was a communications exercise. My speciality is advertising. And to begin with, first of all, we had an advertising project, so we financed all of it, 100%. But in the same way as we would have made an advertising film. So that was the first stage in this project. But then what is of interest to me is that the content have a life of its own. We felt that over Internet, and Internet, in our view, was a great experimental or ground for experimentation, which presented very low risk. Because this is a white label product, we wanted to see what interest it drew from the audience. and convert then the interest of the audience into a symposium onto what BNP Paribas says via these symposia. Now, if it hadn't worked in that way, perhaps we would have turned it around and drawn audience interest using traditional symposia, and this symposia would have been sort of an extra add-on, if you like. But and then following on from that, it's not so much a question of copyright production or co-production. Our business is advertising. We're not a business unit, or the symposia aren't a business unit. It's image building, brand building. And I think that's how it's going to continue in the future. And so the question that we have now is what position we're going to have between being a sponsor in terms of financing co-production. So the way it was done on internet, we won't have more of a role to play in the storyboard production, etc., which will be done by experts. We will have sort of the side role in that respect.
My question. We have many project carriers in the room. Are you at BNP looking for other projects to develop? This is an open question. Is that the end of the question? Well, I mean, since our last project, Les Colloques Flatmates, we received many projects. We're not lacking visibility. We're looking for innovative projects. This is what is stimulating to us. We're looking for innovative projects, and we're looking for values. Maybe you're not going to like very much what I'm saying, but we have our audiences, our customers, our target group, and they are at the center of our interest. They are our main interests. It's not, to us, it's not about having your logo at the Cannes Cinema Festival. It's about reaching the right people and the broader amount of people possible. This is our main communication direction. This is why we work together with Roland Garros. We also worked with Luc Besson, the director, for a movie about suburbs. So this is a way for us to broadcast and to circulate cinema for a lot of people, the most numerous people possible. And I think that projects are meaningful to us if they are innovative, if they are related to a story that we want to tell. And I'm convinced, and let's see what happens, but I'm convinced that the next topic we have to work on, and that hasn't been dealt with in Europe till now, is the topic that's related to a very, very beautiful content, and it's the one dealing with the elderly, with the older generation. And I think this is a very beautiful content. Producers, broadcasters, authors do not know what to do. They only deal with this generation from the funeral point of view, or showing fake young older people. You probably know a project from the Netherlands showing elderly people who are carrying out innovative projects. We had a nice project pitched that's entitled Voice of Memory, and it's about a choir of people who've got Alzheimer. It's a very beautiful project, and maybe I can introduce them to you when we leave the room. You have been very polite while debating, but I think there is a very strong opposition between Cyril and you. Cyril is of the opinion that, of course, we need some fight in the debate. He's trying to get some fight in the debate. He wants to moderate and to bring some energy in the debate. Okay, on the one hand, you say that people have to pay, and on the other hand, we see that there's a high-quality content that's created by a very talented director. And who's the right one? What is the right approach? It's not possible that both approaches are right, is it? I think you can, both approaches can exist, but it's not healthy that we have only one of both models. It's not good to have only brand-funded and branded content, and this is not something I wish for, but I don't think it's good to have content that are only accessible via purchase or payment, because you also have people who cannot afford those content and who do not want to pay. So we need a mixed model. We need both models to exist. If you consider the field of music, there are not only free concerts, but you also have free concerts. And it's not only about brands. You see that local governments and local authorities started funding music events for their citizens and for their young population and student population, while at the same time you still have amazing festivals that are still paid festivals.
I just say, we need to be realistic about the existing business model where, a lot of production companies, including Zodiak and other ones, have got very rich. But the consumer was not always happy. So, everybody has sat at home and pressed the button and trying to find something to watch on TV on 100 channels and still find nothing, and they're paying for that model. So maybe the new model, if it's more consumer-focused, and the consumer may have to pay, but they get better content back, maybe that's a better model. So let's not think there was a great model where everybody succeeded, and that's going away. It's maybe the new model is better. So I think it's exciting opportunities from production point of view, but also from the consumer. Maybe they will actually get content, maybe like HBO, that they actually want to watch. So.
Juste une question. Toi qui
As an international player, do you know some countries that are forerunners or that have more developed the micropayment systems in AV contents? Apart from the apps, do you know about several countries that have developed, maybe together with Zodiak?
No, I don't think of any exact models. I think everybody's fumbling around trying to find the right model. I think the HBO model, which has been around for a long time, maybe 10, 15 years, is a good model. Premium content, no advertising, no interference from brands about content that may be swearing or more violent or something like that. So you get shows like The Wire, very real shows, and that the consumer pays for it. So I think, that's not a micropayment model, it's not a Facebook credits model, but it's a model where the consumer pays for quality content.
On pourrait quasiment faire en fait une déclinaison de l'est à l'ouest.
You could even have a graduation from the east to the west, and you see that in Korea and in Japan. There is a certain payment model. In Europe, we are experiencing a time for transition because internet users and economic actors do not believe in the American system, for example. So we see that, for example, the former editor-in-chief, the former head of a Wall Street Journal left his functions 4 years ago and started a website called Journalism Online in order to coach and to bring American press towards a mixed model, free and pay. And as the head of a newspaper in the United States, he's an important personality, but he was not followed, and due to the fact that many economic players were not ready to adhere on that model and said that no one has ever paid for information in the United States and that it's not possible to start with that. So there was a myth of a free content that is very much settled there, established there.
I had a question. You said that you thought that the future of the landscape, the digital landscape, was going to go away from broadcasters. What do you think will happen when YouView and internet televisions come into play? What do you think, and how do you think the content that will affect the creation of content?
Zodiak, Garret?
I think YouView is an interesting model. But it feels like a stopgap. It doesn't feel like an end model. It feels like convergence. TV manufacturers and TV companies are obsessed with convergence. Let's get everything on the TV, and in reality, people like things on different platforms. So I think YouView is a good sort of bringing together of what's around at the moment, but in many ways it's acting like a traditional broadcaster, and the people behind it are the BBC and other broadcasters and stuff. So it's interesting. We will be pitching to them. We'll be hoping to get some of their money, but I don't think it's the solution. I think that the future media landscape is it's a more complicated world with many platforms that all offer different things, that all offer different payment methods, and we all need to just learn to live with that. So.
Excusez-moi. Encore une question.
Another question to Cyril. You're working as an advertiser for the internet, and you well know the brands that are in a position to buy banners from you. You also know the which audiences are connected. You are a mediation, and this role as an intermediary, does that enable you to go further and to adapt content to what the brands are wishing for? And as an advertiser, couldn't you maybe make a leap and commission content? We have made the leap because we produce content. That's what we do with friends of networks, La France des Réseaux. We also have 2 other projects that are in progress. We are not working as agents because it's another trade, it's another business. We don't know much about it. It consists in receiving the projects, selecting the projects, and then producing and distributing them. This is an activity. We know only a part of it, and we select a project. The artistic side is not part of our expertise. We should probably work on this side in the near future. This is the logic, but we started working as simple producers because, as you mentioned earlier, we know the 2 ends of the chain, and the content is moving and shifting from the one to the other end, so it's more interesting for us to try this rather than directly produce. No more questions? Do you have anything to add? If not, thank you very much. It was a very exciting debate. I'd like to say a few words to conclude those 2 very pleasant days. It was a very interesting and very exciting experience to us. I hope it was the case to you also. It was really a new experience. This market was a great experience. Many of you had the opportunity to meet people they could not have met under normal conditions. I hope you'll have this will enable you to produce, to distribute, to broadcast. I call the team. Please come and join me. You're all there. I would like to very sincerely thank all of you. You've been working, doing a great job. Thank you very much. Pervenche, Elliot, Laure, the entire team of ISC Network, you've provided an excellent job. Alexis, the technical team, Jean, Giorgio, Emmanuel, Claude, and Jean-Philippe, where is he? Tall, blonde guy. He's very elegant. He's not here, but we thank him very much. Thank you very much, and see you next year.